Welcome back to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and GrokTALK.com, broadcasting pre-recorded from the CMHT studios in beautiful Concord, New Hampshire at 8 North Main Street. That way when you come looking for us, you'll know where to find us.
And we are still the safest podcast in New Hampshire.
We believe that's true. Nobody's contradicted us, so we're going to continue to say it.
That's correct. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. How are you? I heard it was really icy up where you are.
It was. This morning was a great, many examples of skid control with the ice storm of early this morning and the total lack of care of our streets and highways and byways. Yeehaw. First time I've driven 93 south going 35 at a steady pace in years. And 3 accidents off the road, and a line on the other side of, going behind the sand truck train. I would say it was about 2 miles long, about 10 miles an hour.
See, south of Concord, we didn't have that. It's just raining.
Boaster.
Yeah, that's me. My part of the state is better. Okay, no, it's not. Plenty of things going on this week. We've as always, there's lots to talk about, and if we got paid to do this, we'd probably make a lot of money doing it, but we do it for free. And,
we do.
We appreciate your support. If you would like to donate to GrokTALK and GrokTALK.com, you can do that on the website. Just go to GrokTALK.com, look for the donate button. There's a big picture of the GrokTALK and microphone and everything. You can click on that if you want. Throw us your couch, cushion change, whatever you want to part with, and we will put it into equipment.
And software. And none of it ever goes into our pocket.
Nope. We don't get paid for this. We don't take any money for it. It's completely voluntary. So no, the Koch brothers are still not paying us to do this podcast. Earlier this week, we talked about the polar vortex thing. You can go to Granite Rock and see some new posts about that. Interesting stuff. We had a group called NH Rebellion and a guy named Larry Lessig that we did some writing about, which we'll probably talk about today. There's some information about the employment fraud that's being engaged in. We'll probably talk about that in the first part of the segment. Democrats, Bill Clinton and Harry Reid and others managed to get Michael Bloomberg to stop running around the country bashing people on principle. If you remember, Mr. Bloomberg has this Mayors Against Illegal Guns thing, which is just an arm of the anti-gun left in an effort to increase gun laws that don't do anything to stop criminals. And he had gone after some Democrats on principle, which I commend him for. I mean, he didn't just go after Republicans who voted against the expansion of background checks. He went after Democrats too. Well, Democrats didn't like that very much. So they went to Mr. Bloomberg and they said, "Hey, could you just not do that? Because they're, Mark Pryor and Begich and somebody else were being attacked by Mayors Against Illegal Guns." And they're like, Bill Clinton even went and asked him, "Could you please not attack Democrats because they might lose?" And apparently the Democrats did succeed in getting Mr. Bloomberg to not want to push the issue on principle, and he has stopped attacking these Democrats on this issue.
Well, that's right. He's got that other subgroup, the Mothers Against something or other, which really turns out to be wacko moms against all firearms. And they're kind of doing the dirty work for them.
Yeah, well, they don't have the kind of press he has, but he is funding everything like that. So.
Yeah, he's the George Soros of the gun set.
Yeah, and well, George Soros probably is too. New Hampshire House did manage to force through passage of the Medicaid expansion bill as an amendment to another bill, which doesn't mean a heck of a lot, but it's going to go to the New Hampshire Senate, where there are enough people to pass it because there's Republicans who love it, so we'll try to keep you updated on that. And
lovely time. It's like, from a political standpoint, the Republicans are deservedly going to get the blame for this thing, because if 2 of the Republicans, Nancy Stiles and Bob O'Dell, vote with the rest of the Democrats to pass Medicaid expansion, it's going to be the same thing as we've been seeing in the election commercials already up on the air here in New Hampshire, where Jeanne Shaheen was the 60th vote to pass Obamacare in the first place. Now they'll always say that the 2 Republicans were the ones who passed Medicaid expansion. At least that's what the Democrats will continue to say.
I'll be happy to say that too if I can replace them with another Republican that's a better vote. Hi Mike, how you doing?
I'm fine. Good morning, listeners. And yeah, I'm completely with that, and I'm actually with Nigel Farage too. In the UK, the UK Independence Party has declared war on the Conservative Party, which are the rhino squishers of the UK, soon to go the way of the Whigs, and have decided that they have given up trying to reform it, and they're going to steal its votes.
You've got that sort of sexy lifetime smoker throat today.
I was transporting our granddaughter back to her lifetime smoker grandfather in a jacket which she usually wears around him, which
even a little smoky.
Even after a week of hanging in our garage and a quick tumble in the dryer this morning, still smells of a lifetime of smoke.
I don't actually smoke. I just have dryer sheets that make me smell like I do.
Oh boy!
Today on the program,
that and bacon.
We have guests, as always, which we like. And we don't always have guests. Let me correct myself. Sometimes it's just us talking like we do the first half hour for 2 hours, and I don't know if people like that or not, but that's really not the problem. It's free. If you don't like it, don't listen. We try to do things that interest both our local and national audience, because we have both a local and national audience, and to that end we typically try to have guests of national interest. We don't have any of those this week, though we do have issues of national interest. Next week, though, we will have Joe DeLeo, the co-founder of the Weather Channel, on the program if you're interested in global warming and polar vortices and all that fun stuff, so we'll be talking to him. But this week, New Hampshire Representative John Burt will be here to talk to us about some bills he's going to challenge in his committee, one of which would basically eliminate trapping in the state. So if you have trappers in your state, if you live somewhere where trapping is a part of your economy and you're interested in that issue, he'll be here to talk about an effort, a local effort to eliminate it in the Granite State. He will also be talking about another bill in his committee that has something to do with cruelty to livestock. I'm going to let him explain that one. I read it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Max Abramson from the Seacoast will be coming in to talk to us about Seabrook, New Hampshire Police. You may have seen some video. It made local news. It might have made some national new media news, and it may have been picked up in your local area by somebody as a filler piece or something. But we have some videotape of Seabrook police officers abusing people in their care. Some people call them suspects. Doesn't matter what you call them. You shouldn't be slamming them into walls.
They're still innocent until proven guilty, and unless they're actually attacking the police officer violently, there's no excuse for that stuff. And just by the way, I was beginning to think that maybe the Seabrook police were some kind of nuclear radiated mutants, because they seem to be in this kind of trouble so often. But then I keep reading reports from all over the country that the growing militarization and violence of especially the largest town police forces is becoming epidemic.
It is, and so we have to keep an eye on that. Max will come in and tell us, he's been here before, about issues like this. We're going to share some more information about that, so this is definitely something you're going to want to watch. And then something you may not be paying attention to, but that we in New Hampshire have been paying attention to for at least 18 months. Jane Cormier, another state rep, will be in to talk about a bill that she has sponsored, I guess, that would require all planning commission members in towns and cities to be elected, and would eliminate the appointed and, I don't even know the right word, all the regional planning commissions that we have in the state that are just basically people who are I was looking through the bill, and everywhere in state law where it says or regional planning commission or regional planning commissioner, there's like 40 different occurrences of that phrase in legislation. Those would all be removed, and they would no longer be required to consult these people. The only people who would be making these decisions are your elected members and people whom they have, you know, been elected to appoint specifically. So you can just have these random commissions that come in and do exactly what the RPCs do. So we'll talk about that. What we want you people to do, especially like in Milwaukee, Minnesota, you guys probably have regional planning commissions. You may not even know it. You're going to want to look into them, and when you hear this discussion, you're going to find out why. Yeah,
it is. It started off as cooperation between, you know, fairly co-located towns, and you know, how do we do our roads so that, you know, you don't have one road going one way, one road going the other way? How do we plan for some of this stuff? But it's like every other piece of bureaucracy that we see in the country, it just grows over time, and they take on more and more and more stuff. They do economic development, they do cable distribution, high-speed internet distribution. I mean, they've got their hands into so many things, and they're unelected, and that's not the way that this constitutional republic was set up. We're supposed to have our elected representatives dealing with these things and not just a bunch of bureaucrats.
If our elected representatives chose to put together a small board or committee to coordinate said activities amongst a group of towns, that would be fine. The problem is that you end up with this appointed board, which is funded by outside sources, including liberal think tanks, the Housing and Urban Development, and much, much more. And essentially it's another way for the do-gooders in the federal government to organize our lives for us, instead of us organizing our lives and telling them, preferably at the point of a gun, where to go.
Yeah, and a lot of times they say, well, we get our support from the local communities. Well, what they do as a former member of the budget committee is they march in, they say, this is how many people you have, this is the tax that we want you to pay. Now, it's not really a tax, but it's your head count. We want you to give us this money. For years I fought giving this tribute to the regional planning commission in the Lakes region here in New Hampshire. And finally I heard yesterday that Guilford decided not to give or ante up over $8,000 to this regional planning commission. Other communities in the area are refusing to do the same thing, which I think is a step in the right direction.
Here it is. If you look at the end of the bill, there's always a thing that says fiscal note and has fiscal impact, and one of the paragraphs in Representative Cormier's bill is, the New Hampshire Municipal Association states that most but not all municipalities currently pay voluntary dues to regional planning commissions, which they will no longer pay should the bill pass.
Yeah.
It's a bit like voluntary union dues.
That's right.
They can't extort you anymore. And then one of two things will happen. Either these boards will go away, or honesty will come out, and we'll find out who's really paying them.
Well, it's not quite that way. They come in and they tell you how much that they do for you, this, that, and the other thing. And when I first heard about this stuff, it's like, what, we've got this fourth level of government here in New Hampshire that I've never known about it? I really didn't. And the problem is when I said, well, we don't need this. If you know, and I looked at my DPW director and he said, you know, if we need a stoplight, you can go to the New Hampshire DOT and get the requisite stuff and the signs. He said, no. I went, what? I said, no. He said, no. I've got to go to the Lakes Region Planning Commission first. They're the ones that deal with DOT. And I'm thinking to myself, we are paying money to an unelected group of people so that they can go beseech DOT on our behalf because you can't talk to them directly.
At which point I'd say you send a letter to the DOT and tell them by the 5th of whenever the light is going up. If you've got an objection, talk to me, not to the monkey.
It didn't work that way because I was told several different ways that you can try to do that and it will take you 4 times as long to get your project done than if you went through the Regional Planning Commission.
I bet it wouldn't take them 4 times as long to come and object.
Well, that's just the way it works. So there was that.
We need to eliminate this extra layer of bureaucracy because you're already paying a guy at DPW to do a job he can't do unless he goes to some unelected schlub and says, "Well, if you play on here, light."
Yeah.
And if you get rid of the unelected schlubs, then the guy can do his real job, which is be responsive to the people that are paying for him.
Right. So anyway, the point was to elect these people in your local plan, because some local planning commissions in towns and cities aren't elected; they're either appointed or people just volunteer. Yeah. And the point is that everybody should have a voice, even if they fix the election. Let's just say for the planning commission, ooh, I want to be planning commission. At least people do have the opportunity to respond, and those people need to respond to them. I mean, a regional planning commission if it has no incentive to respond to an elected town employee,
correct,
why the heck would it respond to a citizen?
It doesn't.
It doesn't at all. So, and that's no point. And they have a lot of power, and we've talked about it in the past. We've had people, we have Ken Eyring in here who's an expert on this whole thing. We've had video from down in New York where a county commissioner was like, I can't believe this, we signed up for this and now the federal government's coming in here and they're telling us what all these things mean and what we're going to do with our money in our town and we don't have any control.
Yeah, and we're now seeing this out in California, the San Francisco Bay Area. DOT has taken charge of this. An unelected board rammed through the acceptance of basically their version of Grant State Future, Bay Area Plan it's called. Same thing is going on in Minnesota. in the Twin Cities, where again an unelected board is starting to change all of the zoning and saying this is where you will be able to build, this is where you will have to build far denser populations, and here's where you can't build at all. And oh, by the way, lots of other stuff along with that. And it's a case of you're going to, the idea, and this has been outlined by Stanley Kurtz. If you go to the corner at National Review Online, he's written a few posts on this, and it really is a case of another part of the dismemberment of democracy and the pushing of the administrative state, where instead of having local control and state control, these unelected regional boards are supposed to set the policy. And there are a lot of people that are from the Obama camp that are pushing this, and they're looking at it as a way to bring back all of that flight of tax money that left the cities, and that they say it has destroyed the urban populations.
And to which I say it's time for the towns to vote. First they vote to build a bigger jail, then they vote to have a volunteer sheriff's department, and then they jail the bureaucrats anytime they come through town, and they say, we're going to do this the way we want, we're going to build where we want, we're going to put farms where we want, we're going to put stoplights where we want, and we're going to put you where we want, which is the jail. Have a nice day.
People need to understand that this, even if we don't take Mike's suggestion,
oh, please.
and it's not a bad suggestion at all. I imagine there's places in Texas where that would work great. I don't know where else. But people understand is that they're saying, oh, it's not a lot of money now, it's not a lot of money now. But it's bureaucratic creep. They're going to end up taking control over more and more, and they're going to need more and more money to control it, and they're going to need your money. And you've already got people in positions of authority that you've elected that are part of your town government who can do this stuff, or who, if they really needed to do more, you could pay them more to do, and they would still be accountable to somebody, as opposed to this other situation where you have these boards spreading out like a virus, sucking up responsibility, and then basically hampering your elected officials on both sides at the state level and the local level.
Yeah. And the really important thing, and why we get in such high dudgeon about this, is that...
Dudgeon.
Whichever.
Dungeons are usually low.
The dungeons are where
well, he already talked about jails.
Yeah, the dungeons are where we put the bureaucrats. High dudgeon is the state we're in.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Is that we are very much conservatives, constitutionalists.
Welcome to Wordsmith on GrokTALK.
And we're not so much about going back to the right. We're mostly we want to go back down to our roots, to our original values that made this country what it is today. But starting back in just before the 1900s, we had this progressive movement, a foreign philosophical philosophy come in that said, life's too hard, life's too complicated, the ordinary person cannot cope on their own, that we need an activist government to be able to make those decisions for you. And oh, by the way, over time it'll be called the administrative state, where it's just a bunch of nonpartisan technocratic bureaucrats making all the decisions for us, so that we can just live out whatever is left for us to decide on our own.
This is not a good idea, though, because for those of you who are thinking that might not be such a bad thing, if you ever own property, which they don't want you to do, by the way, they will come and they will manage your lawnmower exhaust. They will come and manage the rain that runs off your house. They will come and manage what you do on your property and when.
And they'll fine you if there's too much water runs off your driveway.
They will do it. It's already being done. Do not think we're joking. Just look it up. Google it.
Maryland.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's being done to people right now. They can't stop it because it's being managed through the federal bureaucracy by regional planning commissions.
Well, they can stop it because these people are worthless, unelected, have no power.
They can, but I'm saying right now they're in a
situation
situation where they are so entrenched in this RPC culture
that
it's, they don't have an elected official they can go through to get rid of them, because the elected official has absolutely no influence on them.
The nice thing to do with those people would be to get a few neighbors together, hog tie them, and dump them in the town square.
Well,
we'll bring back the stocks and we'll put the RPC guys in.
What I wanted to get across was that, and Steve alluded to it, the bureaucratic creep. At some point, at what point do we lose our democracy? We see this. Those of us who are news and political junkies and watch what's going on in D.C. are seeing that now with the lessening importance of Congress. Now, it's doing less and less and less, and Obama is using more and more of the executive branches, levers of power, to do what he wants. That's not American democracy.
No,
and we see that happening more and more and more. And frankly, I'm getting rather scared of it. And these RPCs are a prime example of it locally here. And wherever you're listening, folks, I bet you if you, like Steve said, start to look all this stuff up, you're going to go, yeah, maybe we ought to say enough of this.
I mean, let's face it. First of all, you're paying your town people, your selectmen and your appointed managers to run your town. Then you're paying a tithe to the regional planning commission to tell them what to do. Then you're paying to do the stuff that they're telling you to do, and it gets worse and worse, and you have less money, but they're taking more from you. And it's going to happen at all levels, and it's the tentacles of the federal government being pushed down. The administrative state is in place, and it's going to take a superhuman effort to roll this back. And we've got to wake up, and we've got to use the ballot box and the soapbox, because otherwise the ammo box will be our last line of defense. And we know none of us.
Oh no, we're going to be on national news again.
So Mike is now recorded as a wild extremist, and I'll say again, none of us want to be there.
We already knew that.
But you knew that.
Well, here's a primary example of what you're talking about. The Federal Department of Justice has now made a ruling about how schools can discipline their students based on this racist, and I say reverse racist, idea of disparate income.
Comfy chair?
Disparate outcomes. And it's basically going to say that, especially in the urban areas, leave the kids who are acting up, disturbing the class alone, which is going to make things worse for, because they're a minority, which is only going to make things worse for the well-behaved minority students who are actually there to try to learn versus just to, I'm in a paid babysitting class.
It's worse than that.
And you lose the local control.
Well, aside from the fact that the local schools have no obligation to take any notice of that anyway and should tell them to get lost, more importantly, I got two words for you. Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin is the product of exactly that form of school management. It was the policy of the school board at where he was being taught, which I think was close to Miami, as opposed to North Florida where the incident happened, not to punish minorities and to make the statistics look good. And he was allowed to get away with bad behavior for a very long time before he became the problem child that assaulted George Zimmerman. Whether or not you think George Zimmerman's a great guy, which he's doing a pretty good job of proving otherwise, the fact remains that Trayvon Martin was the assaulter, and that he was a druggie, and he was a criminal. And he was allowed to get away with it because his school district had a policy of not punishing minorities.
Well, you made the comment that the local schools should just tell them to get lost. The problem is it's the crack money that the federal government has, because this dear colleague letter went out not only from the DOJ but from the Federal Department of Education, who gives the schools lots of money. The Department of Education under Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan.
Right.
So there's the carrot, there's the stick. If you don't behave the way we tell you to, we're going to take your money away. And unfortunately, there are too many school boards and too many school administrators who are so addicted to that quote-unquote free money that they will jump through hoops to get that. And who suffers? The local communities.
They're already jumping through hoops, and it already isn't working. I had this discussion with Ovid during the 2012 campaign. The federal government is supposed to pony up something like 40% of the cost of special ed programs.
Oh, yes.
They pony up 17%, and it's falling. So what makes you think the free money is actually worth anything, aside from the printing presses running? It's not worth anything. I postulated at the time, and I firmly believe, that if schools took a long, hard look at what they do and what it costs them, they could kick all the federal government money out and run their schools better.
Well, there's an important point to that argument, and as I've talked about in the past, my school budget, 65 to 75% of my entire school budget is wages and benefits.
Yep.
None of it goes to students or teaching.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't go to infrastructure, it doesn't go to anything else but paying people to be there to do whatever it is the Department of Education bribes them to do.
Yeah, and well, that's typical of most local governments. 60% of your taxes go to wages of one type or another, or benefits. regardless of whether it's the school or the municipality. That's just the way it is, because local government is labor intensive, and it's hard to bring the productivity aids to that area.
I bet if
based
we
on the model,
outsourced it and paid somebody to run our education system for us, it'd be a lot less.
what I was going to say, based on the current model.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, it's about time you two apologize.
Interrupting cow.
For interrupting.
Moo. Interrupting cow. Moo.
Squirrels.
We haven't even talked about squirrels yet. But, all right, we're coming to the end of the segment.
Click, clack, movie.
In our next segment, we will have Representative John Burt from Goffstown. Goffstown. Okay. We're talking about trapping and some other really interesting local stuff that we think is worth your time. So we'll be right back in a couple of minutes. Oh, hey, there's the music. I was wondering what it was. I keep changing my setup a little bit as we progress into the new year, trying to get new ads and promos from people, trying to get, I'm getting tired of listening to myself in the break. I want other people's voices in there, so it changes the timing a little bit because the length is different. But that was really exciting, wasn't it? Thanks for tuning into the GrokTALK. Now that all the listeners have left. Okay. We'll be right back with John Burt. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Audition. Thank you.
And meanwhile, for the benefit of the viewers on the stream, I don't know how good Skip's focus is. We have here
the camera. Oh, what's on the back?
The all-new Public Enemy shirt from Patriot Depot.
Hi, this is Skip with Granite Rock. Is
I'm
John
on the
there, please?
President's Enemies list proudly since 2008, before he became president.
How much time we got left? Time?
3 minutes.
Okay. Hello, John. Skip from Granite Rock. How are you? Good, good. We're going to be coming on in just in about 2.5 minutes. So we're going to have you listen to the promos that Steve has and the interval stuff that Steve's put together, and then Steve will bring you on. Alrighty, you hold on.
And by the way, remember what we said about Germany asking for their gold and the big meltdown?
Yeah.
Well, the first installment was sent over of a tiny percentage over the new year, and the Germans said, well, where's the Bundesbank markings that were on the bars we sent you? Because of course the gold's been recycled, rehypothecated, and the reason for the delay is they're scrambling to buy the gold they don't have in the vaults anymore. There's another article from last year where there were memos in the 60s between the Bank of England and the Fed that basically said the quality of your gold stinks, it's not pure. That's the Brits telling the Fed. And psst, don't tell the Bundesbank about this, because some of those bars got passed back to Germany.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Turn around, let me see your shirt.
So you can read it for the listeners if you like.
Yeah, well, maybe after the show I'll take a quick snapshot of it.
President's Enemies list.
Yeah.
It's 1972 all over again, or whatever year it was they took Nixon out.
Since I brought the wrong memory cards with me, I'm going to stop the recording for now.
Grok TV.